Welcome to Ampedcast, your number one EDM community.
Join us to hear conversations with artists and industry pros as they share stories, tips, and resources
to help you amplify your success in music. Hello and welcome to another episode of Ampedcast. I am so excited to be here not only on audio today, but in video format to share another amazing episode. First, I have to ask you a question. Do you want the secret sauce to fueling yourself forward in the industry and having the courage to put yourself out there in big ways? If you said yes to this, then this episode is for you. Today on the show, we have my dear friend Shadowstar, who's here to share his journey through music and how he has conquered his own fears to set forward and fuel himself forward. And one way he has done this is by submitting an original track to be on Mousetrap. Yes, deadmau5's label. So on this episode, learn how he discovered the courage to do it after almost saying no and instead saying yes. And this opened up his life in new ways. And I'm here to say, as an artist, I know this may seem hard, yet you can do it too. You can always put yourself out there in new ways, creative ways, and maybe ways you didn't think possible. If you enjoy topics like this, be sure to like and subscribe to hear more episodes just like this one. Before we dive into this episode, I want to share an opportunity that's going to help you book the gigs you want in the industry. Yes, with this one tool in your tool belt, it's going to set you up for success with venues, promoters, and industry pros. Having your EPK, your electronic press kit, is going to set you apart in the industry in so many ways. Most venues now are requiring you to have an EPK to even apply for gigs. After working with artists for a year now, I've seen that many don't have EPKs or their EPK is out of date. And that's why I've created the EPK Bootcamp. This 2-day course helps you create, maintain, and distribute your EPK. It also helps you discover how to set yourself apart in the industry and create a bio that speaks to you and your music. Normally, my EPK consultations cost $997. However, I am offering to you this bootcamp hands-on opportunity for $197. Yes, we are slashing the price to $197 for this May only. There are 2 sessions available this May. The doors are closing for applications for session 1 on June 30th. So if you want to take advantage of this once in a lifetime opportunity and finally create that EPK you've been looking for, definitely apply today. Check out amplifyedm.com/EPK for more information and application. I am so excited to see you there. And now without further ado, enjoy this episode. Welcome to Ampedcast, and today we are here with Shadowstar, my dear friend Dylan, who I met at an event called Kitchen Techno. And now we're here talking about your journey as an artist and just like the industry and just many, many things that are going to be, I think, extremely helpful to listeners who are on their journey to music. So welcome, Dylan.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate what you're doing here in Austin. It means a lot.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I love how we met because it was so organic and so fun. And you were playing Kitchen Techno, which is a house techno event, like house party techno event. They pack the whole room and you were playing. And I remember I saw your wife yep. And I just went up and I talked to her and I was like, tell me about this. I was like, you were so talented. I love your music. And she was just so sweet. And we had a great conversation. And then this led to where we are now, which is this fun collaboration and sharing your story. So dive in. Tell us a little bit about you and your musical journey.
Yeah, I think that it actually can be summed up by the Kitchen Techno event. When you think about like how community is fostered, it's not at like the main stages. It's not at the bigger venues. That's where like the different smaller community circles meet. But something like Kitchen Techno is like where you get the chance to talk to people and really grow in friendship and community, much like what we're doing now. For me, though, like starting music was just kind of something that seemed predestined. It's easily to say because I think that I had to learn the definition of talent and skill. Talent is something you're born with. It's like you can't just acquire a talent. You can acquire skill through time. But music and playing with music, it just always has been there. Funny story, it was like hearing a friend play guitar, and I always wanted to be a guitarist. I'm like a failed guitarist, low key.
I could see you as a guitarist, not gonna lie, low key.
Tall, lanky. Yeah. And I was listening to him play like some AC/DC, and I was like, hey man, like I love what you're doing, but like, how do you get the pick to come out of your amp? Like, that seems like it's actually like a transient or something. And I didn't know any of that knowledge at the time. But it was a fascination of like, how in records do you not hear those like unwanted sounds? And so that started the production like interest. I didn't know it at the time, but now that's what I focus on primarily. So like production and creating music is totally separate in my mind from being an artist and performing. And I think that one thing that separates me from traditional EDM artists or DJs is that I did the DJ gig. I loved playing other people's music, but I wasn't fulfilled. And that's not how it is for everybody. Many people are talented DJs. They can play other people's music and give you a whole journey you've never experienced, even to the songs you know word by word. For me, though, I started having this desire to play my own music, make the music that no one else was making. You know, I wanted to hear what was in me come out. And so that kind of started this long 15-year journey.
That's incredible. So when you really got into production, would you say, like, what was your kind of your style back then versus what it is now? And what is some of the music you like to produce?
Yeah, so I'm kind of like of the mind of all music. I can definitely tell you the music I don't like. It's probably more song by song basis than it is genre.
Yeah.
I used to not like folk music and realized a lot of the music I love is folk based. So it's like, oh, well, there you go. When I started, I was actually making like break beats.
Okay.
It was a lot of like world music style stuff, taking influence from like blues and rock, and then finding more of that. I don't even know how to like classify it. So some of the artists that inspired me from the break style music is like Common, the hip hop world for sure. That's actually how I learned how to make my first beats.
What?
Yeah, shout out to the Northside Reconcilers. These guys took me in. My cousin and I, we used to do music videos for them, whole hip hop crew. And one day I was just hanging out in the studio, and I remember one of the artists we hung out with was like, "You want to learn how to make beats?" I was like, "Yeah, like I need another job. Why not?"
Aren't we good at creating jobs for ourselves?
Right. And so I started like just learning what groove and swing was, and I realized that it was everything like my dad had shown me growing up. You know, you have to have big band, you have to have the smooth jazz, you got to have groove, and it all comes from, you know, our roots and the influences of all this different cultural blending. And then sound started to emerge from myself, which I think it was probably more like indie EDM music at that point.
Okay.
But then it was like, okay, now I'm hearing music from artists I would never even know the name of, like Deadmau5. And I'm like, wow, this, you know, more four on the floor stuff is really good. This like uplifting, take you higher music was great. And then you have like the more minor music creep in through like Deadmau5's sound. And it was like, oh, wow, this is like, it's like hopeful, it's sad, it's melancholy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So I got Fruity Loops and started playing with that style of music. And that kind of fizzled out. Not trying to keep up with trends, you know, like what's my voice? And over time, it led me to creating more house. I love house, can't get enough of it. It's like the music that gets people talking at a party. A lot of like house DJs at first get nervous because they don't see everyone dancing and raging. But what I noticed very early about like reading the crowd is, are people having memorable moments? And house does that, man. House music brings you closer, you know? So I did that for a while, and I'll probably always have like my love in that organic, progressive house music. And you gotta have the funk and the soul. Can't ever get away from
like
it,
the
you know?
disco house a little vibe.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. You know, it's actually probably been the music that got us like EDM to where it is today. You know what I mean?
Oh, very, very true. I believe that.
So then now I was like going through, you know, adolescenthood, and eventually found like this darker, heavier sound. probably from Electro House, just being like so much more, And over time, I still wanted to go into my roots, dub, hypnotic, psychedelic, and that led me to like the Shadowstar project and what the music is today.
Very, very true. And I love that because you kind of blend techno, melodic techno, like in your current work, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And you when we talked before, you mentioned a little bit of it's like a balance between the light and the dark.
Absolutely.
And can you kind of dive into what that means to you in your music?
Yeah, so I think like the easiest way to give an image is like the dark music is like LA Warehouse, like Renegade style, There's these companies right now that just did like amazing Renegade like out in the waterways of LA, and it's like, oh man, you can't beat that. And that's what I remember, because even 20 years ago, it was like you're sneaking out to the Ghost Ranch, and maybe even longer now if I think about it. But yeah, I think the dark music is more heavy, more aggressive, darker tones. For traditional musicians, it's drop tunings. Can you get a darker sound out of your guitar?
Yeah.
And then the light music is more uplifting. The easiest way for me to explain that is I was writing music a lot at like 2, 3 in the morning. I worked nights, so I was a night watchman. And I actually worked at a church for like 11 years, keeping the grounds. So I was always in the spiritual realm, and I was very tired, and I needed something to like soothe my soul. So it was like nocturnes. I was writing nocturnes, and that really developed an organic progressive house sound. And that's the light to me. It's like the soft pianos, the melodies that tug at your heart, And that started merging then further into this like heavier, more aggressive when I started working days. I don't know if the cycle has really anything to do with it, but maybe it does, right? And I actually avoided putting out this like darker, heavier music because I didn't know that the world really needed anything more like that, the times that we're all in. But I was encouraged to take a chance, and so I did. And people were like, yo, where has this been? I was like, great, I got plenty of it.
Yeah, I love that.
And it actually came easier to me to express myself. So now I'm trying to merge like my nocturnes, 2, 3 in the morning music, right? Into this more peak time, heavy driven techno.
That is very cool. And that's like what I really noticed about your work was the unique sound that you brought. And that's, that connection and how you, balance that light and dark. I'd like to dive into, a little bit about like putting yourself out there, because a lot of artists are scared. I know we've talked in the past about like that fear of putting yourself out there. And you have a very, very big story of your experience taking a chance on your music and entering into a competition that got you pretty far. Can you share that story?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it concise. So basically, I was working for this company in the UK. I had an A&R session with Umek of 1605, which was like a dream, right? So I knew I needed to write a tune very quickly. And then while I was spending some time at my sister's, kind of like my respite every year and around Halloween, I saw this little notification from Masterclass, and I had joined Deadmau5's Masterclass like 5-6 years ago, and he had a competition. And I was like, my skill level isn't there. Like, I have so much to work on. Maybe another time. So when I got the notification this time, I was like, yo, this is probably a pretty good time to do this. But I got this A&R session with 1605. No, I'm not going to do it. Well, again, my spouse, who always encourages me, Mitzi, is like, you need to do this. I'm like, okay, so we're driving home from Houston. We got 16 hours until the deadline. Like, okay, get home, and for 16 hours, that was it. I just focused, wrote the song, took a couple breaks here and there, and then like tried to get it in at time. And then I get a notification, oh, your demo wasn't received. I'm like, oh God, what's going on? Watching the minutes like tick, tick, tick. And then finally it went through, and I was like, oh my God.
I can't believe it. And what came of that?
Well, I woke up one morning to an email saying, welcome to the Mousetrap family. And I was like, oh my God, I won. It was like 7 a.m. Woke up the wife. She's like, what's going on? And she just looked at me. I told you.
Oh my goodness, she did. That's very much the spouse would do. It's like, well, I told you to do it.
I'm glad you listened. Aren't you glad? And she's right. And she has deserved the right to say that. Like, I believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself, right? Yeah. So went through that whole process. I think that it's worth noting for artists hearing this that it's like competitions, have a double-edged sword. On one side, it's like, yes, I have my success. On the other side, people are like, oh, you won a competition? You know, I remember standing in the concourse, and there was this dude chatting with me. And I was like, oh, yeah, you know, I won a competition to get on Mousetrap. And he's like, oh, a remix. And I was like, no, an original. What, an original?
Oh,
you know,
I love that.
total different demeanor. I was like, yeah, an original. So here's the thing for people to listen very intently to about competitions. Competitions are not a cheat code. They are not a fast track to your success. What it is a way to get the person who would normally not be able to, you know, get your music in front of, to get it in front of them.
Yeah, it's opportunity.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And you got to take your shot. I've been in a lot of competitions and got nothing, not even third place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was a pretty magical moment, seeing as like, my dad told me who the person that I want to become will need a mentor, a coach, and a teacher. Find those, and find them in the ways that you can. So deadmau5 being like the soundtrack to my teenage years and going into my adulthood, the lesser known tracks that aren't really always played at a show, you know, like, so there I was, will always be a part of my like life. That leading up to winning a competition, to meeting my hero, and then him totally being chill while I'm like fanboying way too hard, you know. He was so cool. It was just like, hey man, like chill, you know, in the nicest way, and then let's have a real conversation. So he was able to break through like that moment, and then he could show me the things I needed to know. And I think the biggest thing I learned from that, right? And I said this in the Mousetrap Radio episode I was on. It was like, it opened up doors for me, and you're always going to acquire haters. They're like, oh yeah, what doors did it open up for you? Playing shows and stuff? I was like, no. Doors of perception.
Yeah.
It allowed me to understand my sound and what really mattered to me, and that someone could recognize it in me and say, you were scared of this? Because I didn't want to add any more negativity into the world, and I've had this weird idea that dark music was doing that. Then I got to remember that music does different things for different people, no matter its style, right?
Yeah.
And the architect behind it is important.
Yes.
So what I learned was there's some smoke and mirrors in the industry. Best thing that you can do is be original and do something that no one's ever done. How do you do that? Because everyone is told that. Be authentic. Just be yourself.
Yep.
The choices you make, the way you interact with people, everything is authentic to you. Things will happen.
That is so profound and so true, and such great advice. Thank you for sharing that story. And, you know, I just love to see you continuing in this journey, you know, especially having that opportunity and putting yourself out there. I'm kind of curious too, what are you kind of doing now? Like, what is something you faced in, say, the last 6 months, whatever, year long, since you know, been really moving and shaking with your music, that is like something you were faced, like a challenge that you overcame?
I think it's your mental outlook, because life doesn't slow down. It speeds up.
Yeah.
It definitely speeds up. It doesn't get any easier, so take your risks now. But one of the things that deadmau5 had actually said to me was like, hey man, like, you need to think beyond Mousetrap now. And I was like, dude, I just got here. Like, how could I, like, this is where I was headed. He's like, yeah. Think beyond it.
Yeah.
And now I realize that's the thing. Each step of the way, yes, you focus on that, but you have to look beyond it as well.
Yes.
Because then you'll get content, and that's where your dreams will shatter. So I think, like, going through things like my father having open heart surgery, dealing with the industry, fighting for fair pay, time management, right? Helping as much as I can, giving back to like my students and communities I'm a part of, giving everything, right?
Yeah.
So I think that struggles will be there, obstacles will be there, but there's like two things that are most important. One is finding your purpose, right? Which is discovering your gift. And then this is obviously the famous quote, but finding meaning, right, in life is to give your gift away. So that's what I do. I give my time, as much of it as I can, away. Yeah, there we go. We got the house right there.
Yeah. We got some runners. We're at the park, by the way.
Yeah, you got to enjoy this natural, awesome landscape. The second thing is, how do you truly define success, and how do you move forward in spite of it all? So I think that Earl Nightingale said it best. there's like 95% of the world that doesn't know what they want and where they're going. And that was at that time. Maybe it's different now with all the entrepreneurship that happens. But if you're a ship and you don't have a rudder, the waters and the winds will blow you across as arbitrarily as it can be. If you have a rudder and you do the consistent things every day, you will reach your destination. So how I define success was best put from what Earl Nightingale found, which was the progressive realization of a worthy or noble ideal. So if I can progressively realize what I'm doing as an artist, not fame, not glamour, not how many likes and plays I have, just focus on the art. And even though the wind will be turbulent, there will be tumultuous waters, as long as I do the same consistent things that a sailor would to get through those navigating waters, right? I'll end where I need to be.
Oh, that is beautifully said, and so true, especially in the industry and anybody listening. This is great advice for any artist who's at that point where it may be, like you said, it might be something really, really great that you all of a sudden get, or it's something that's holding you back. But either way, you have to think in a forward-moving direction. Like,
absolutely,
what's next? What can I contribute and continue to contribute? Deadmau5 is going to be playing here soon in Austin.
Yes.
I figured you may be aware of that.
Yep.
You have seen some incredible support online, and I'd love to hear about that support. And it sounds like you have some incredible people that are dedicated to you that would love to see you play, or with the possibility to play the opening slot at Deadmau5. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I woke up on the morning that the Concourse Project had announced Deadmau5 was coming. It's like his 25 years of Deadmau5, so it's like really cool to see his journey coming to kind of like a pinnacle. So my personal manager, Kevin Cox, and my spouse, Mitzi, first thing in the morning, they were like, yeah, Shadowstar should play this. He's like label mate, he picked him for his competition, made him, the producer of the comp and all that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Thanks, guys, for thinking of me, Well, I went to work and I then read everything at 5 o'clock, and you couldn't scroll without seeing comment after comment saying Shadowstar, Shadowstar, Shadowstar. And I realized right then and there that the community that may be the actual backbone to me and my encouragement to continue showed up.
Yeah.
However the troops were rallied, I got a nice, pleasant gift for that day.
Yeah.
And realized that there are so many people, because I knew almost every single one of them, and some I have very short relationships with, to see that they would be supporting me enough to where the concourse seemed to notice these comments and were liking them. And it was like, okay, this is how it's working out for me. It's not me like rushing and trying to hustle. There's two ways you can do this. You can either conquer your scene, but that normally ends up with a dog pile and you on bottom, just how I've recognized, in my opinion, not for everyone.
Yeah.
And the other is embracement.
Yeah.
People embracing you and giving you your shot. The way that I look at it is, it took enough people to request me for it to be a noticeable thing. And then I got hit up by the promoter of Real Music Events, who was like, hey man, we should get you on this mouse show. And I was like, yeah, let's go. Like, why not? This is proper, because it's different when you ask to play a show, because you have to tailor your music correctly. In this case, I think I get to be myself, the artist, not just the DJ, because the people requested me. They know my music. They know my sound. They know my energy. If they didn't know me, they could be disappointed seeing this kind of energy, before Deadmau5. So if, in fact, everything goes well, which, with a little bit of prayer and good thought, it'll happen.
Yeah, that is incredible. And you also had mentioned before our interview that, it's kind of like a win no matter what, because you look at the beautiful embracement you have seen through people supporting you. That speaks so much for the community around here. That speaks so much for your love and dedication and how you are as a person to others too.
Yeah, it has probably 10-20% to do with my music. This is obviously me looking at the forest for trees, but I think 20% music, the rest is me, how I interacted with these people, how I try to help and support them, maybe how they just saw me experience life through my perspective. So the gift, that was the people, my city coming and calling me out, for me, being my voice. That was the gift. I've already won. How they win is if I perform and I do it well.
Yes.
That's what I have to do. That's what I owe. So now that they got me the opportunity, I have to deliver. Right?
Oh, yes, that is incredible. And what a journey. I love hearing and learning about, your vast musical career and journey. What's next? What have you got coming up?
Well, in terms of music, I actually have an EP coming out this month, so that's pretty cool. On the 24th, it's like my B-side music, which I personally love more.
Yeah.
It's like my main tracks, that's to fit a purpose. My B-side is just like, here's experimentation, right? Exploration. And it was actually the first time I had a label reach out to me and was like, hey, we really want to get you on this. Can you create us an album or an EP? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay.
So I'm happy to see that coming out. And then I think really some things that are happening for me is I may start taking a step back from teaching a little bit. I've been doing it pretty consistently, over 300 sessions last year. And I think it's almost time for me to start working on like a true Shadowstar album, start to finish, a whole story, not just singles for the club, but what it means to be an artist is to tell your story and your message. So I think that's probably time.
Yes, that is incredible. Like, I'm so excited to hear that and definitely check out your music. That is going to be awesome. You said album that you're releasing. That's going to be so sick. So, how can people find you online? We'd love to connect them with you.
Yeah, you always got to have a good tag, something easy to remember. So it's Mr. DJ Shadowstar at the end of everything. And MR, not like Mr. like spelled out, but MR. And it's just easy to find that way, whether it's Instagram, which is mostly where I'm primarily active. For people that are like producers or aspiring musicians that need support or just want some insight, they can always find me at my Patreon. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, and I'm always trying to give back. There's going to be a time where I don't have the availability to give back as much as I am right now, so it's very important for me to do that now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'd love to get into kind of our final question for today. And so, Shadowstar, what is something that is inspiring you in your music today?
Hope. Hope, definitely. My music right now is being revamped. I'm looking at my inner demons and coming to terms with that. And also redemption, hope, and friendship. Those are the themes that will be in my music. And it's kind of like a neon noir lit fantasy of mine. So that's nice,
Yeah.
It fits on the color brand.
It does.
And honestly, the best thing that I can say is your roots are where your music flourishes the best. So like dub music has always been in my life. I got to have that. I love the Moody Blues, so a lot of their influence will be in my music for sure. And then ultimately, I can't get away from the blues, it's just where it is. And I think that adds into the psychedelic, the hypnotic, right? And then the intensity of like the neon noir cyber world that we see today with technology. So I'll be putting all that together in some audio alchemy, I suppose.
Audio alchemy. That is incredible. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me and share your story and share your journey to help other artists along theirs as well. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth noting, thanks to you for coming to Austin and being the voice for the artists that need it most, because it is something that is needed. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.